guys wanted me to do a video on what happened to my husband and how I'm doing since he has passed and how has been autistic, how has grief affected me as an autistic person. So that's what today's video is going to be about. I was going to do a step-by-step thing of what happened, but I decided not to do that because I pretty much go through the steps in my head, and it's such a traumatic thing, and it's something that I already ruminate on and constantly cry, and I just didn't want to do that in this video. So the short answer of what happened to my husband is he passed from complications of COVID. Um, we all had COVID except my oldest daughter. The kids got over it pretty well. Him and I, it was a lot more difficult. I actually had a hard time getting over it as well. But he was the one that had to end up going to the hospital. He presented with the COVID pneumonia, and his oxygen was dropping to the 80s. He was there for a couple of days and just on oxygen, and eventually he had to be moved to ICU, and then eventually dialysis and the ventilator, and eventually his heart stopped. At that point, it was 2 weeks to continue dialysis. His kidneys were still not functioning, and the doctors was just like, they did everything that they could. They believed that there was brain damage there from when his heart stopped, and they were trying to get him back. And he just ended up passing. And when it first happened, I think I was in shock. Pretty much the entire time. Like, it was so surreal. Like, I did not believe that my husband was going to die. When I left, when he was admitted, I hugged him. I told him I loved him and that he was going to be okay and not to be scared, because he was always afraid of going to the hospital and seeing doctors. And I just knew that everything was going to be okay. I would have never thought that he was going to end up passing. And it'll be 7 months next month on the 2nd. And you would think that by 7 months, you're going to be okay, at least a little bit. But I must say that as time goes on, even though in some ways I have learned to carry it better, it's still very difficult. Very difficult. Some nights I do cry myself to sleep. At one point I was sleeping with his urn. He was cremated. But now it's been a while since I've had to sleep with his urn, even though I've wanted to recently, because it feels like I took a step backwards because I'm just missing him so much. But yeah, that's what happened to him. As far as how I'm doing, like I said, it's still very difficult for me. I still get emotional over it. I miss my husband so much. I think me being autistic, how we have our favorite person or our favorite thing, and we so desperately hold on to it and we need it, and if we don't, we have meltdowns and we just don't feel right. And my husband was my favorite person. And my heart doesn't understand why he's still not here. Um, Logically, I am still trying to make it make sense, because it doesn't. It doesn't make sense at all to me that he's not physically here, that I cannot physically touch him, that we can't talk to each other. And there's no remedy. There's no remedy. And I think that's the most heartbreaking thing, is that there's nothing to fix the loneliness, you know, and it just stays with you. And I do try to keep myself busy and not just dwell on it, but, you know, for something so huge, it's just very difficult. And my husband was such a big support. He knew of my mental health struggles, and he tried to help me in any way that he could. You know, I have a hard time driving to places I've never been before, and just driving, period, it just takes me out mentally. So he would mostly do all the driving, and it's been an adjustment having to drive again. I can drive, it's just mentally draining, and it causes me a lot of anxiety. So there's that, and I don't really venture outside much. I usually do all of my shopping online, but sometimes I do have to drive, and, you know, the truck, it doesn't feel like mine. It feels like his, and I say, you know, everything that's his, I say that's his, you know. And so me and the kids are still adjusting, you know, they do the same thing. They're like, I'm gonna sit at Lee's desk, and can I get on his computer? But I don't know what I want to say. So many things have changed, and it's just surreal still. Very, I don't know, guys. Like, I'm still getting through it and learning to do things on my own again. And at first, you know, I did have a major meltdown, and I had to be hospitalized overnight. And at that point, that's when I started to see a psychiatrist, because I knew that I needed a support system, you know, because my husband was my biggest support system. And where we're living, we had only been living here about 2.5 years. No family here. Him nor I had any family here, so it was just him and I. And now it's just me and the kids in an unfamiliar place, really. And I guess that adds to the loneliness. But if you ask me how I'm doing, I'll say I'm doing okay right now and in this moment. But am I always feeling okay? No. No. Sometimes I have to muffle my screams so the kids don't hear me. Sometimes I'm just sorry about that. Sometimes I'm just praying to God Even though I know that he passed from COVID and bad things just happen, you still can't help but wonder why. Even though I know, but I pray so hard for my husband to be here and get better. I honestly believe that he would, and that just didn't happen. And